Radio check, Jen?
Mark, I hear you.
Great, thanks.
Hello in there.
Hi, Mayor Paul. Can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you well.
Perfect, great. Okay, well, hi everyone. I'm gonna call the November 25th, 2024 City Council meeting to order. Remind folks to turn off their cell phones or silence their cell phones. And I'll quickly announce, so Mayor Paul and Council President Mark are both on Zoom. But because of them being on Zoom, they've asked me to chair the meeting in person. So, hi everyone. And we're gonna quickly do the land acknowledgement statement. So as we meet tonight, let us remember that today we are stewards of land that has been home to Indigenous peoples for thousands of years before the recent arrival of the European heritage dominant culture. We honor this land's ancestors as we go about our business today. And then we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know what's that. We already did that.
Yeah, we did the silencing.
Yeah. Okay. Justin, are you acting as mayor or is Abigail online? I guess Jen. Okay,
We have Abigail online
great,
as well.
perfect. Welcome. Well, so any agenda additions or corrections?
Sorry, glad to see you all. No, there are no changes to the agenda. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Abigail. And then business from, oh, I don't have the sign up sheet. Do we have any business from the audience? Okay, so this is the time for business from the audience. I'll ask folks to keep their comments to about 3 minutes. We're gonna have you come up here and speak to the microphone if someone can make sure that's green when folks come up. And we're gonna start with Jorgen Hess and then it will be Stephen Labadie. Okay, we're gonna have Stephen Labadie.
Hi, my name is Steve Labadie, and I have lived here for 52 years. And I love it, and I want to thank you all very much for the work you do and help keep this place the awesome place I call home. And it takes a village, and I love this place because we are a village. How do you reduce the extreme fire danger that exists in the Indian Creek watershed along the Indian Creek Trail? I'm just talking about from where the river, the Indian Creek goes into the Hood River up to about 12th Street. I mean, that's what I'm referring to. And then it extends all the way to the high school and it goes up both sides. But I live right at the end of 7th Street where the steps go down, okay? And I've been there for 40 years and I've watched like the blackberries have gone from the trail all the way up to my house. And 3 trees have fallen, and what they do is they cut the slide out of the trail and push everything over the edge. And there's just this tendency to just throw it over the edge or whatever. And it's scary. It's scary because I know a lot about fire, and there's just a massive amount of fuel down there. And so how do we reduce that fire danger that exists? So there might be a lot of plans out there, but nothing's happening. Nobody's nobody's clearing the brush. Nobody's cutting the trees. Nobody's hauling it out. That's a big piece. So in 2016, there was a fire at the very end of 5th Street, right by the trail. There's 3 acres, started down the bottom, came all the way up. And at 10 o'clock at night, bomb, bomb, bomb. Police are there saying, get out now. And I looked over and there's 15-foot high flames coming out of my neighbors. And it's like, excuse me, but wow, So we left, and it was kind of terrifying. I mean, 15, that's as tall as that. So So in around 2006, I worked with many groups and individuals. I was working with Soil Conservation, Joe Kelly, Rick Reagan, and Saxby, and there was about 20 of us, and we were working with the Soil and Water, the port, the city, the current chief of police, Debbie Wells. And we created a plan for a fire break that went from the power station down to about 200 feet past the stairs at 7th Street. So it's about 5th Street, where the current fire, the recent fire was. So the idea was to clear from the trail all the way up to the houses, property lines, and get all the fuel off of there, in the branches and da-da-da-da. And then Devin retired, and then plan went away, and nothing's been. I know that there's a lot of things going on individually, but I haven't seen anything on the trail. So my hope is the city will create the hub, that all the related groups and homeowners can work together. It's like everybody has a piece, but nobody's kind of coordinating it, and if we could somehow get Charles here, the man, so he could be the center, because a big part of the problem is there's so many groups and they're all overworked and understaffed, and I get that, but there's great willingness. So I've talked to the mayor personally, Abigail personally, our wonderful fire chief over there, the port director, Kate Conley with the Land Trust, Simone. I've talked to Cheryl Rice at Soil and Water, Matt Jordan at Parks, Matt Jackson at the Public Works, Charles Young, and Gina Alot, the woman who works and clears the trail for the Park and Recs. And again, there's lots of willingness, but there is no central hub, and there is no, who do we go to? Who do we go to? Who do we go to? So how do we create a short-term plan and an ongoing plan to reduce the serious fire danger that exists? So there's a huge amount of, I don't know if you guys walk that. I almost walk the trail every day. You go along and there's blackberries.
Steve, you've kind of, you're moving past 3 minutes, so if you could.
Okay, so you get it. There's tons of fuel. So how do we get a short-term plan? And it's going from the Dutch Brothers to the power station to 5th Street where the last fire was, and clear from the trail up to all the property for starters. And then go from the trail down to that place all the way to Hazel, and then go to the other side and also start to clean out the insides. Along the creek there, because there's up to 10, 15 feet of debris on the ground down there. There's a huge amount of fuel. So, and it's a longer term, it's like, how do we just continue to maintain a program where you get the community involved? I talked to a lot of people in the community, and a lot of people have ideas, but we need something to go around, and hopefully you guys will be that hub that we can go around and then work with you and through you. And so, like my friend Jurgen said,
Can you please wrap up? Sorry.
Oh, okay. So it's not if a fire is going to happen, but when it's going to happen. And so what's the headline going to read? Because the community and the city got together and created a plan and an action plan and removed the fuel, no problem. And that's what I hope the headline's going to be. So again, thank you very much.
Okay. Jurgen Hess, 412 24th Street. I've talked to folks before. I have to second Steve's concern. At one time, Megan, you were on, we had an Indian Creek Stewards group. And they did a lot of work, native plant restoration. Now the issue is fire. In the interim, I agree with Steve, we need something right now. Charles Young is working on a little bit longer approach, but that won't be ready for 3 or 4 years. Susan and I manage one of the sites on Indian Creek. We've had 3 fires there in the last 10 years. Some very big, some small. Tad Johnson has had probably 5 fires that he's put out. He lives right next to the substation. What to do in the interim? My recommendation is have a coordinator that knows what they're doing until Charles is ready to take off with his planning. I would volunteer as an advisor. My background is forestry and fire. I'd be happy to be an advisor, not a coordinator. We've already got plenty of work for that. So I think some way it needs to be sanctioned by the city council and the mayor that to have some coordinator, somebody, could be Steve. That you just keep track of everybody, but you got to have an advisor there that really knows how to do fire breaks. You got to know, and you've got the police chief over there. You've got Charles Young. You've got a lot of people that have background, but you got to have somebody to put it together and keep it moving. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Jen, do we have anyone online who wanted to speak? No, we do not. Okay. And I think we are up to presentations and update from Hood River County Emergency Manager Charles Young. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to struggle for a moment with Zoom. And share a screen.
This.
You got the share feature?
Yeah.
Got it, good.
So thank you very much for your time this evening. Really do appreciate it. I wonder if this is going to work. A little bit about me. So I'm a Hood River County employee. I work out of the Hood River Sheriff's Office in emergency management, which is a single person department. My role is to mitigate the hazards that are faced by the community, as well as to prepare for, respond to, and recover from large incidents. So I'm basically all over big incidents within the county, and then by default, the sub-jurisdictions within the county. I've been living in this area for about 16 years between Mosier and here. My background's in IT and also 15 years as a firefighter in Mosier. What I was asked to talk about tonight was the Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and also a little information about the recent closure of the historic Columbia River Highway. I also would love to be able to answer any questions that you might have about what emergency management is doing in whatever areas you're interested in. So I'm going to start with the plan with the longest title in the entire world. So this plan is really looking at all of the natural hazards that the community within this area face. What we are trying to do with this plan is to identify what those hazards are and then figure out what actions we can take to mitigate the risk of those hazards. The NHMP, Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan, I'm going to use those two terms as synonyms. I do want to start by stressing this is a mitigation plan. It's not a response plan. This is really about the mitigation. It's one of the foundational documents for emergency management. So it describes a lot of what it is that I'm going to be doing over the next 5 years. It's a plan that has to be updated every 5 years in order that we as jurisdictions are eligible for funding from a lot of different sources. And we're doing something just a little bit different this time. So we've had natural hazard mitigation plans in the past. We've also had community wildfire protection plans in the past. And community wildfire protection plans are mitigation plans that are specifically talking to wildfire, whereas the NHMP talks wildfire and a lot of other hazards. What we're doing this time is we're merging these two together. So the CWPP will actually be an addendum to the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. And the reason we're doing that is for two reasons. One is so that we make sure that we update the Community Wildfire Protection Plan as often as we update the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. The CWPP has no timeline for updates, and so it tends to lag until somebody actually has time to do it. Which means that it doesn't get updated as frequently as an NHMP. So we're going to merge those two together to make sure that they get updated together. The other part of all of this is that it's a terribly long process to update an NHMP because you have to go out, you have to get a grant, find somebody to do the work, and you continue through. So the grant for this particular update is one that I applied for, I think, 3 weeks into my employment. So, and we're almost at 3 years now. So it's a long process to get these plans up and running. It's a multi-jurisdictional plan, which means this is a collaboration between the county, both cities, both ports, the library district, the school district, and the West Side Rural Fire Protection District. And those last three, it's the first time they've participated in a natural hazard mitigation plan. So it's really wonderful that they've taken their time and effort to do so. The project was funded by a grant from FEMA, which is part of the disaster response for COVID, in fact, so a little bit of the set aside. And we had wonderful support from the Oregon Partnership for Disaster Resilience at the University of Oregon. The project team for this project included local, state and federal partners. You can read the list there, it's a very long list. And the process, as I mentioned, has been quite a long one. Where we're up to right at the moment is we have a draft natural hazards mitigation plan. We're still working on the draft of the community wildfire protection plan. We're hoping to have that ready in the next couple of weeks. And we're taking the natural hazard mitigation plan out for public comment, which is one of the reasons that I'm here tonight. And so anybody can go to the Hood River County Sheriff's Office page, look at emergency management and see the draft plan as well as all of the jurisdictional addenda. Once we go through the public comment process and we integrate the comments that we receive, we'll then be sending the NHMP to FEMA for approval and then eventually back to the county and to each jurisdiction for approval, for adoption, which we hope is going to be around February of next year. It's quite a long process. So what's in the natural hazard mitigation plan? So we start off with that identification of the risk and the assessment of the identification of the hazards and the assessment of the risk that these hazards actually present. We also describe mitigation strategies in there. And then there's a large section about how we're going to pay for these projects. Volume 3 of the jurisdictional addenda, as I mentioned, there's multiple sub-jurisdictions that have their own addenda. And then the last volume is a community wildfire protection plan. For the city, this was your steering committee. And they took a lot of the work that's in the base plan and modified it to fit the needs specifically for the city of Hood River. For the county, as an example, this is the hazard matrix that the county came up with. As you can see, wildfire is at the top of the county's hazard risk. This is actually different to the 2018 version of their natural hazard mitigation plan that had winter storm higher than wildfire. You can see also that we've added 2 new hazards that have not been considered before. One of those is extreme heat, and the other one is air quality and smoke. Through all of these hazards, we're looking at them through the vision of climate change, as we expect all these hazards to be accelerated and the risks increase due to climate change, other than items such as volcano and earthquake. For the City of Hood River Annex, your risk matrix is just slightly different. And this really talks to the difference between the community living well within the WUI and in forested areas versus a more urban environment. And it also talks to the built environment within the city being at specific risk from a Cascadia subduction zone event. In the City of Hood River addendum, there's 15 actions identified, and there are funding sources identified per action. These actions include retrofits and building projects, coordination projects, and planning, land use and code updates. And a lot of that, of course, has been driven by the ODF hazard mapping for a wildfire. But also there's a FEMA update for your floodplain management. There's a lot of work going on. I should also point out that these actions are not necessarily new. Some of them have been in previous plans, and a lot of them are in progress. So as an example, you identify in the plan a public mapping project, and we actually had a training session for that mapping project last Friday. So these are ongoing plans. And the reason that they exist in here is because they're ongoing. One, we want to complete them, but two, if we need to gain funding, this is a way of identifying them to funding organisations. So as I said, the adoption process is that we solicit public comment, we integrate the comments, we submit the plans to the National Hazard Mitigation Plan to ODEM and FEMA, and then we adopt the plan. So does anybody have any questions about the National Hazard Mitigation Plan before I move on? I know I've been just absolutely speaking there.
Grant?
For posterity members, what is a CSZ event?
The Cascadia subduction zone is a particularly worrying area of the crust where part of the crust is going underneath another part of the crust. It's just off the coast of Washington, Oregon, California, and it's considered a very high risk event.
Yeah, anytime you present something with abbreviations, it's helpful to say what those abbreviations are. So anybody seeing it can know what they are.
No worries.
I deal a lot with them, so it makes sure our spell out. And then how well would the public comments that you heard tonight fit within?
Yeah, the public comments that I've heard tonight are really specific to the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And so I'm going to be using the comments that I've heard tonight, as well as the comments that we've already received. And anybody that wants to make public comment can email nhmp@hoodrivercounty.gov, and those will be integrated in the plan. And those we accept in both English and Spanish. If you have a different community language, then we may have more trouble, but we'll do our best.
Thanks.
So these particular comments will be integrated into the CWPP and other comments into the NHMP.
Folks online, do you have any questions at this stage?
None for me, none for me.
Perfect. I think we're ready to move on to the next step.
Perfect. So the second piece that I was asked to talk about was a little bit of the history about the historic Columbia River highway closure that happened over the summer. So just to put everything in context, the microwave tower fire in late July crossed over the historic highway and impinged upon an old agricultural dump site that's just west of the Hood River County border between, just west of the border with Wasco County. Whilst that, when that fire was happening, the fire was being managed by a complex incident management team, which is a team of that was managing both this fire and also the Whiskey Creek fire. They handed back the management of the microwave fire to Oregon Department of Forestry. And Oregon Department of Forestry took it on, and then the last piece that was actually burning was this agricultural dump site that's actually on USFS land, United States Forest Service lands. Sorry about that. There's too many acronyms in my job. And the dump continued to burn. The coordination between the Complex Incident Management Team, the ODF and USFS, somehow in that process, we lost some context. And so it was not really well understood by the team that was taking on this particular piece of fire that there may be hazmat inside the dump. And so there was some time lost whilst that was kind of figured out. The other piece, just again for context, is that this is a fire season where about 2 million acres of Oregon burned. And so we were running at very low resource levels for any kind of overhead teams. So the teams that manage a complex incident, and this would have been a complex incident, but it ended up being managed by 1 or 2 individuals out of US Forest Service. After some time, the decision was made to actually try and extinguish the dump because they were going to be disturbing the dump and they were suspecting hazmat. It meant that they actually needed to understand what was actually burning. And so air monitoring was introduced. There was a lot of communication generated for the closure of the historic highway trail. And that communication was in discussion with the county, city of Hood River, city of Mosher, the Department of Parks and Recreation, IPR. There's, again, acronyms. ODF. I mean, there were a lot of organizations around that. And really what the team was trying to do was to prioritize communication with the community, because what we were trying to show was this is not a normal closure due to fire and for the risk of moving through burned areas. We all are familiar with what happens post-wildfire. And so there's a reasonably well understood risk within the community of what happens after a wildfire. What we were trying to communicate was this was different. This is burning hazmat, and we didn't have a really good understanding of what was burning. Once it was better understood, a team from Mosher Fire went and actually put out the fire. And as you can see from the picture there, they were using heavy equipment to dig through to disturb the pile, put water and Class A foam on it, and they were wearing SCBA as they did that. So they were going through the normal process of extinguishing a hazmat site. One of the complexities, of course, is that hazmat is well understood, fire is well understood, but if hazmat's on fire, then the jurisdictions become very murky. And so again, that's one of the complexities of this particular event. What has happened so far since the fire was extinguished and the trail was reopened? We have now been through an after action report, and the written report for that will be out in a couple of weeks. We have identified that we need to mitigate the area so that if a fire impinges on that same location, we don't run into the same problem. And that probably will involve removal, which is going to be an expensive and time-consuming process. And we will be recruiting a team to be part of the advisory group that talks to that project. And I am hoping that the city will be participating in that project team. That's my update for the historic highway closure. Does anybody have any questions about that piece?
I was kind of a little bit intrigued about the history of that, just because it's, an agricultural dump site that's wasn't particularly near agriculture, and just if there's any, information about the history of how that got there, who was dumping there or what. I had no idea that was down there until it was on fire, but that piece is kind of interesting to me, how long it was used as a dump site.
And I'm afraid I don't have the history on that. There are a lot of people that do, but if I were to try and use my recollection of what people have told me, it would be all wrong. My understanding is that DEQ actually did know about this particular dump site and that there were permits pulled for it, but the permit was to dump agricultural waste, so basically fruit. My understanding also that it was actually a fruit company a packing company that had pulled those permits and was eligible to dump materials into there. From what Mosher Fire told me, it's certainly not fruit burning in there. It's everything but fruit burning in there. They went down, I think, about 30 feet, and there is a lot of industrial waste in there. So I think for people that have more history in this area than I do, it was a fairly well known site, and had been used for decades. That's as I understand it.
Thank you. I don't know if we can entertaining. Yeah. Yeah, I'll catch up with you afterwards. Yeah,
All the history on that.
love it. I'm interested. It sounds like people aren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, but yeah, thank you.
Other folks in the room? Mark and Paul, any questions at this point?
I'm good, Megan.
Nothing here.
Great. This is, I think, maybe you or Abigail, I know you said it's online on the county website, but if you could send the city addendum to counselors, it sounds like something that's good for us to read before we look at adoption in a couple months.
Absolutely. Yeah, be very pleased to.
Perfect. Well,
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
thank you for your time. Thanks for coming out. Okay, so we are onto the consent agenda, it looks like. Do folks have any things they want to pull off or discuss? Okay, I have one minor edit, but otherwise I'm open to a motion. Okay. Page 55 of the packet is the resolution 2024-23, and it says we're adopting it or approved, adopted, and effective December 9th. So just a minor edit for Jen, whoever.
I move that we approve the consent agenda with the minor edit just noted on page 55 of the packet.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Doug and seconded by Grant to approve the consent agenda with the minor edit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair/I vote aye. I don't know if I'm really chair, but motion passes. So gosh, we're jumping down. City recorder updates. We don't have anything. City manager comments.
Yes, thank you. 2 items. Let me just check my notes here to make sure. The first is we're coming up in December, and that means we'll have free parking downtown December 9th to the 25th. So that's the first 2 weeks and a little bit of extra time before the Christmas holiday. And my second is we need to do interviews for a landmarks review board candidate. We have 1 spot. We have 1 candidate right now. Maybe we'll have others. So looking for a volunteer to coordinate with Dustin to do an interview sometime in the next couple weeks.
Thank you, Abigail. Looks like Doug's volunteering unless anyone else is jumping out of their seat.
Great. Thank you, Counselor Stepina, and we'll Jen and Dustin will coordinate with you to find a time. We usually do them online, so it's not a big time commitment.
Yeah, happy to help.
Great. Those are my updates. Thank you.
Thank you. And committee reports. Let's start with Mark online.
None for me.
Okay, Paul.
Nothing here.
Great. Grant.
Region 1 Act beats on December 2nd, so nothing until then.
Perfect. Doug.
Nothing.
Ben.
I have not.
I know. Okay, real quick one for me. The Sister City Board met last week. It's looking like there'll be the Taste of Saruta fundraiser, hopefully in March. I'm hoping to get an actual date soon. And it also sounds like some of the middle schoolers from Saruta will be visiting Hood River around that time. So we're hoping to overlap those so folks can meet some of those students. And then I also wanted to flag, of course, so I won't be here come January. So a new counselor, it'd be great to have another counselor on the board. I think it's been a really helpful connection. So I don't know if that's something we can bring up in December I can provide whatever info if folks are interested and have questions. Perfect. Then mayor comments, Paul? Anything?
Nothing for this week.
Okay, and council comments. Let's go the other direction. Ben?
Nothing really from me, just looking forward to the tree lighting coming up. Attending it as a counselor for the first time, something I attended for years as a private citizen, and yeah, looking forward to that.
Awesome. Doug?
Yeah, similar, just looking forward to the tree lighting, looking forward towards our work plan session. I'm not sure if, Abigail, have we hit the deadline yet for the comment cards? We have, yes?
Yeah, if you're talking about for our goal planning session, the deadline for the survey was the 17th.
17th.
And I haven't heard a final count, but I think we're probably about 150 comments.
Fantastic.
Plus, I've heard from 3 agencies and I expect to hear from at least 1 or 2 more. So lots of community input this year. I really appreciate it.
Great. Yeah, look forward to talking about that. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Grant?
I don't have anything.
Sorry. Okay. Mark?
Yeah, I'll just leave it at happy Thanksgiving, and looking forward to a busy and eventful December. So it'll be fun.
Awesome. Quick update for me. I attended the county meeting last week. A lot of it we're already aware of. They also heard of the natural hazard mitigation plan. Their consent agenda included 2 of the things in our consent agenda for the CET for Mariposa Village and the annexation study. They mentioned they were going to maybe figure out some feedback to our work plan. So if we haven't already heard from them, I'm hoping we will. And then this was just kind of a minor thing, I think, in Arthur's update, but he mentioned that recent economic report had reported that there's been more service jobs and less kind of professional manufacturing jobs in the county since the last update, likely as a result of our housing costs. So we are seeing some economic impacts from that. I don't think it's a surprise for anyone, but it was interesting to it's always interesting to see the data on that. And then I'm gonna not dive into this because I am not the expert, but there was some talk of kind of Norcore funding long term, and they've definitely got some financial gaps that need to be figured out. That's certainly I'm on my end. I'm going to leave that to the county, but just kind of a flag for the community on that. And yeah, so let's see. Oh gosh, so now we're into executive session, and I have a script to read. And thank you all for coming. We've gotten a couple emails, yeah. The city council will now meet in executive session pursuant to Oregon Revised Statute 192.6601E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions, and Oregon Revised Statute 192.6601H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff are allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room, and we will end the public broadcast. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made nor final action taken in executive session. The executive session is anticipated to last
30 minutes tops.
30 minutes. At the end of the executive session, the city council meeting will be adjourned and no action will be taken. We will now discontinue the live feed and recording.